Today, we are really diving into a story that has everything. It's got high-stakes tech, billions of dollars on the line, and maybe most importantly, a family rivalry at the very center of it all.
It's the kind of thing you couldn't make up. We are talking about the high-performance computing rivalry that is, right now, defining the entire future of artificial intelligence.
On one side, you've got Nvidia. They are the current, undisputed champion, led by the very visible, leather jacket-wearing CEO, Jensen Huang.
And on the other side, the relentless challenger, advanced micro devices, AMD, led by CEO Lisa Su.
And this is where the story gets just, well, incredible.
It's the personal connection. Lisa Su and Jensen Huang, they're first cousins.
Sounds like fiction. Between the two of them, they essentially control the technological destiny of the global data center, the entire future of high-stakes AI training. And they are family.
Yeah, to be really precise about it, our sources confirm that Lisa Su's maternal grandfather is the eldest brother of Jensen Huang's mother. It's a literal family rivalry at the absolute summit of the trillion-dollar semiconductor world.
And the familial bond, it just adds this intoxicating layer of narrative to what's already a hugely intense economic fight.
You see it in the headlines, right? They're sharp, they suggest maximum intensity. We've seen major publications declare that Lisa Su is, and I'm quoting here, out for Nvidia's blood.
Right, as AMD works to break this chokehold that Nvidia has on the AI hardware market.
So that is our deep dive mission for today. We're going to unpack this whole thing. Is this fierce economic rivalry, this battle for AI dominance, a genuine multi-billion-dollar fight for market supremacy?
A fight driven by, these generational R&D cycles? Or is the surprising family connection a sign of something less intense? Maybe even a manufactured competitive stunt designed to boost publicity for both companies?
It's a fascinating question, and to answer it, we have to look way beyond the personal drama. We need to dig into the strategic decisions that got us here.
Exactly. We'll get into Su's almost impossible turnaround of AMD, the technical warfare happening right now in the data center with their new MI300 series chips.
And, of course, the critical software gap, the undeniable moat that Nvidia has with its CUDA platform, that whole ROCm versus CUD fight.
And finally, the strategic implications of these two leaders' vastly different leadership styles.
So let's begin with the architect of the turnaround herself. The person who took a company that was, for all intents and purposes, failing and turned it into an industry powerhouse. Let's talk about what we're calling Lisa Su's Phoenix strategy.
I love that name for it, because this isn't just a business success story. It's a story of transformation from the absolute brink of corporate extinction.
To really get the scale of what she's done, you have to understand where she came from, her foundational background.
She was born in Taiwan, emigrated to the U.S. as a child. And she is, an academic force of nature. She holds 3 degrees from MIT.
3 degrees from MIT.
A bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD, all in electrical engineering.
And her origin story, the genesis of her interest in all this is actually really relatable. It wasn't some grand, pre-planned career path.
No, not at all. It was just pure, simple curiosity, the kind that starts with childhood tinkering.
She talks about how whenever her younger brother's remote-controlled car would break, which, happened all the time.
Of course.
She was the one who felt compelled to take it apart, figure out why it wasn't working, and actually try to fix it. That desire to understand the inner workings of things, that really defined her early on.
And that tinkering led her directly into the physical reality of making chips. In her freshman year at MIT, she took a part-time job, just basic grunt work, really, in a semiconductor lab for a grad student. And it was there, watching the process of, etching and manipulating silicon, that she just fell in love with it, with the sheer power you could pack onto one tiny physical chip.
It's the magic of it.
It is. And even back then, the potential of the semiconductor fascinated her. It pulled her away from pure physics or academia and toward building and implementing real-world products.
So she takes that passion, that technical mastery, and goes through some of the biggest names in the industry. She started at Texas Instruments, but I think her most consequential early work was probably at IBM.
Oh, definitely. At IBM, she was instrumental in developing the silicon-on-insulator technology, SOI.
Explain that a little. Why was that so important at the time?
It was a huge innovation in semiconductor manufacturing. It was a new way to build the silicon wafer that dramatically improved chip performance while, and this is key, reducing power leakage. So you get faster chips that use less power. A major breakthrough.
But her time at IBM wasn't just in the lab, right? She took on a really pivotal role that shaped her career in a different way.
A completely different way. In 2000, She accepted an assignment as the technical assistant for Lou Gerstner.
The CEO of IBM at the time.
Exactly. And she refers to this as one of the most formative experiences of her entire career. Because it wasn't about the tech. It was about observing executive leadership at the highest possible level.
An unfiltered view of how a company of that scale is managed.
Right. How high-stakes decisions are made, how you operate at the very top. That experience immediately translated into management roles for her.
She went on to found and lead IBM's emerging products division, which sounds like an internal startup, basically.
That's a great way to put it. It was focused on areas like biochips and low-power semiconductors. Her team actually developed this crucial microprocessor that dramatically improved battery life in handheld devices.
She proved she could not just do the research, but actually commercialize it, turn it into a real product.
That's the unique blend that sets her apart. She has this deep, fundamental technical mastery. She understands silicon at its core, but she also has this proven managerial experience.
She recognized that a single researcher can achieve great things, but leading a team of 50 or 100 people, that's how you achieve exponentially more.
Exactly. Right before joining AMD, she was CTO and Senior VP at Freescale Semiconductor, and she successfully helped stabilize their operations right before their big IPO filing in 2011.
So she has this phenomenal blue-chip resume when she joins AMD in 2012, and then she becomes CEO in October of 2014. But the company she inherited, it wasn't just struggling.
No. It was facing an existential threat. That's the crucial context here.
Right. When she stepped into that top job, AMD was in complete disarray.
Utter disarray. The company's share price was bouncing around $3, a market cap of only about $3 billion.
Which is nothing in this industry.
At a rounding error, market share was plummeting in both CPUs and GPUs. Their product roadmap was a mess. It was overly complex, inconsistent.
And our sources note that even her most experienced mentors were telling her not to take the job.
They were. They warned her it was a bad career move because the company was considered, unfixable, a lost cause.
And yet, what she engineered is, I would argue, one of the most significant corporate turnarounds in modern tech history.
I don't think that's an exaggeration at all. Under her leadership, AMD's market cap exploded from that measly $3 billion to well over $200 billion today.
$200 billion.
And they achieved what was once unthinkable. They briefly surpassed their longtime rival, Intel, in market capitalization.
So this is the Phoenix strategy. How did she do it? What were the steps?
It was a complete reinvention, not just a simple optimization. Step one was just establishing internal stability.
Putting out the fires.
Exactly, rationalizing that confusing product lineup. Step two was aggressively repairing stakeholder relationships, especially with the big OEM partners who had just lost all faith in AMD's ability to deliver.
And there was a really important early piece of that strategy, a strategic diversification that basically bought them time and money.
It was the financial lifeline. This is so critical. The sources highlight the importance of securing those deals to get AMD's semi-custom chips into the major gaming consoles.
The Xbox One and the PlayStation 4.
Those contracts provided immediate, stable, high-volume cash flow. That revenue stream was the financial engine that funded the critical, multi-year R&D investment they needed.
The R&D that led to the Zen CPU design.
Which was the groundbreaking architecture that eventually allowed them to challenge and then, completely overturn Intel's decade-plus dominance in the server market with their ePYC processors.
It all connects. And speaking of strategic moves that were absolutely necessary for this current fight, this AI fight, we have to spend some time on the massive acquisition of Xilinx.
Oh, this was a defining moment, a huge bet. In February 2022, they closed a $49 billion acquisition of Xilinx.
So, for our listeners, what is Xilinx? What did they do that was worth almost $50 billion to AMD?
Xilinx is a leader in a specific type of chip called field programmable gate arrays, or FPGAs, and other specialized programmable systems.
And why were FPGAs so strategically vital for AMD's big push into the data center to challenge Nvidia? What piece of the puzzle was AMD missing?
It secured the intellectual property and, just as importantly, the deep expertise in two absolute necessities for cutting-edge AI hardware. Okay, what are they? First, advanced heterogeneous integration. And second, sophisticated packaging techniques.
Let's break that down. What does that mean in simple terms?
Okay, so when you look at AMD's products today, especially these new Instinct AI accelerators, they are not a single monolithic piece of silicon like traditional chips. They're built using a modular approach called chiplets.
The chiplet architecture, this is key.
This is absolutely key. And Xilinx gave AMD the profound expertise they needed to design and manufacture these highly complex, modular chiplet-based products. These designs are fundamentally different from Nvidia's older monolithic approach.
So the acquisition wasn't just about buying a product line, it was about buying a new way of building things.
Precisely. It positioned AMD not just as a CPU and GPU supplier, but as a technological leader in integrated complex platforms. It gave them the tools to leverage the benefits of breaking large chips down into smaller, interconnected, more efficient parts.
That sets the stage perfectly for the current high-stakes fight. So Lisa Su didn't just save AMD, she fundamentally changed its purpose, repositioned it entirely for the future of computing.
A complete pivot.
So let's move into that, the stakes. AMD's AI, big bet, and the truly staggering market opportunities she is targeting.
This is where the story shifts from, a corporate recovery story to an aggressive generational confrontation.
Yeah.
And Sue's commitment is absolute.
You can see it in her quotes.
You can. She's quoted in our sources stating plainly that AI is actually the future of computing. She emphasizes this isn't some transient trend, it's the fundamental direction of the entire industry.
And that core belief, it seems, mandated this complete multi-billion-dollar refocusing of all their R&D efforts.
Directly toward the data center, which is, Nvidia's home turf. Their entrenched territory.
And the size of the prize here, it has to justify that massive pivot. What's the scale of the market they're actually aiming for?
The figures are just staggering. Lisa Su forecasts that the overall AI accelerator chip market will reach a monumental $400 billion by 2027.
$400 billion.
It's an immense financial opportunity. And that's the necessary justification for the kind of multi-year, multi-billion-dollar R&D spending that AMD has committed to its Instinct Accelerator roadmap.
Her ultimate goal, then, is, well, it's truly ambitious. It's to lead the entire trillion-dollar compute market.
Absolutely. The whole thing. The aim is to transition AMD from being the default high-performance choice for CPUs, where their EPYC line is already dominating the data center,
right,
to becoming the primary choice for AI GPUs, which is currently Nvidia's crown jewel.
But she seems to temper that ambition with a certain kind of patience.
She does, and it's very strategic. She states she is not impatient with achieving this goal. She's acknowledging that chipping away at a decade-long software and hardware moat requires a sustained long-term approach. You don't do it overnight.
Okay, so let's talk about their core technical counterattack. AMD's strategy isn't just about building a faster individual chip. It's centered on this idea of architectural coherence.
Yes, and this is a unique structural advantage they currently hold. It's their key differentiator.
So AMD is unique in the ecosystem because it's the primary designer of both the CPU, the EPYC processors, and the GPU, the Instinct accelerators.
That's the structural advantage. Not even Nvidia has that, as they focus almost exclusively on accelerators. And Intel is still working to integrate its GPU and CPU lines effectively. AMD is already there.
So if they design both parts, how does that architectural coherence actually translate into a better product for the customer who's trying to train these massive AI models?
It allows for incredibly deep system-level optimization. They connect these distinct components, the EPYC CPU cores and the Instinct GPU chiplets, using their own proprietary high-speed cache-coherent interconnect.
The Infinity Fabric.
The Infinity Fabric. Think of it like a private super expressway inside the chip package. It maximizes data throughput and minimizes latency across the entire platform.
So they're not just selling a GPU that you plug into a motherboard.
No. They're selling a complete, deeply integrated platform solution that removes all those internal communication bottlenecks.
And the ultimate expression of this strategy has to be the MI300A APU, the Accelerated Processing Unit.
The MI300A is the physical manifestation of this entire philosophy. It's groundbreaking. They're marketing it as the world's first data center APU.
What makes it an APU?
They've physically integrated the CPU cores and the GPU chiplets into a single package. And by doing that, they can leverage what they call unified memory.
Okay.
In this case, it's high bandwidth memory, HBM3, that is shared directly and simultaneously between both the CPU and the GPU.
And the benefit of that shared unified memory is absolutely paramount for AI training, right?
Precisely. Think about it. In a traditional system, data often has to bounce back and forth between the CPU's dedicated memory and the GPU's dedicated memory. Each bounce creates latency, a waiting period.
Wasted time.
Wasted time and energy. By unifying the memory in the MI300A, they dramatically reduce that latency and speed up communication. It makes the system operate far more efficiently, like a single processing entity.
And at the system level, I imagine there are benefits too.
Huge benefits. It saves space and power by eliminating the need for traditional, separate DDR memory on the package. That's a massive efficiency dividend for data center operators.
These architectural claims are strong, but the market needs validation. It needs proof that real customers are committing billions to this vision. Are they getting those early transformative wins?
They are. The sources confirm that they are seeing major early wins, and these signal institutional investment and acceptance from the highest tiers of the market.
Like who?
Well, crucially, we have reports of a potentially transformative deal that's been secured with OpenAI itself. The deal is valued up to $100 billion for the MI300X and the upcoming MI450 chips, securing the creator of ChatGPT as a customer. I mean, that's probably the greatest validation a competing hardware provider could ever ask for.
It doesn't get bigger than that.
Yeah.
And what about the hyperscalers, the big cloud providers? They're
Really?
also actively looking to diversify away from just one vendor.
Absolutely. Dell, one of the world's largest system integrators and providers, is placing significant orders for the MI300 series. And these sales are vital
Why?
because they immediately shut down this pervasive skepticism in the market. This idea that hyperscalers wouldn't touch non-Nvidia chips if they were given away for free.
Right.
This proves that wrong. The market is actively working to incorporate AMD's chips into their architecture. It confirms the competition is real and the diversification strategy is really happening.
This brings us right into the technical trenches. So let's move there. The technical battlefront. We need to look at the hardware innovation, the efficiency war, and that major software chasm that AMD absolutely must cross to succeed.
Okay, so the MI300 series, which is built on their CDNA 3 architecture, is just a marvel of modern semiconductor packaging. It is AMD's direct engineering counterpunch to the monolithic chip designs that have dominated for the last decade.
So how does the architecture physically achieve this? Let's unpack that chiplet approach a bit more.
So the Instinct MI300 series, including the MI300X and the upcoming MI325X, it relies on advanced 3D packaging and that modular chiplet design we mentioned.
Right.
Instead of one giant, difficult-to-manufacture chip, the MI300X physically integrates up to 8 vertically stacked accelerator dies, the XCDs alongside 4 I/O dies, which manage all the system communications.
And these are all built on TSMC's 5-nanometer process.
The leading edge.
Yeah.
And they're all interconnected with that high-speed Infinity fabric.
So why is this a better engineering strategy?
Mhm.
Breaking a chip into these little chiplets instead of just building one gigantic one. What's the fundamental advantage there?
It really comes down to cost, customization, and most importantly, yield rates.
Yield rates. The number of working chips you get from a silicon wafer.
Exactly. When you manufacture a wafer, the chance of a defect increases exponentially with the size of the chip. Making one absolutely massive chip perfectly is astronomically difficult and expensive. A single tiny defect can ruin the entire unit.
So you throw the whole thing away.
You'd throw the whole thing away. But by using smaller chiplets, which are easier to manufacture without flaws, the yield rate soars. You get more usable components per wafer. It dramatically reduces manufacturing costs.
And allows for more customization.
Right. AMD can mix and match different types of silicon technology for different functions, leading to highly customized and efficient products.
And that incredible complexity, it translates into raw scale. What are the key specs on these chips?
The scale is just immense. The MI300X and MI325X feature 304 compute units and an astonishing 216 matrix cores dedicated just to AI calculation.
And the transistor count.
The total transistor count climbs up to 153 billion. For context, the previous generation, the MI250X, had 220 compute units. So the move to chiplets and advanced packaging has enabled a foundational increase of over 40% in core density.
All without the corresponding catastrophic increase in manufacturing complexity and failure rates.
That's the magic of the chiplet approach.
The scale is clear, but are the performance gains generational? That's what the market demands.
They are substantial, especially in the lower precision data types that are so critical for training and running large language models. The MI300X and MI325X provide a massive 3.4 to 6.8 times peak throughput gain over the prior MI250X for machine learning data types like FP16 and BF16.
And what about the absolute cutting edge for AI inference?
For peak theoretical FP8 performance, which is really the new standard for highly efficient inference, the MI300X and MI325X reach 2.6 petaflop PS per second.
PFLOPs.
And this explicit focus on lower precision data types like FP8, which saves memory and reduces power, is a direct engineering response to the demands of these models with trillions of parameters.
Beyond raw compute, the amount and speed of memory, the high bandwidth memory, or HBM, is absolutely crucial for feeding these massive AI models. This seems like another area where AMD is competing fiercely.
Oh, it's a key battleground. Because the bigger the model you want to run or train, the more memory you need right there on the chip itself.
To avoid those latency hits.
Exactly. And the new Instinct MI325X is equipped with a massive 256 gigabytes of HBM3E memory, offering up to 6.0 terabytes per second of bandwidth.
That's a huge number.
That's a significant memory density advantage. When you compare it to Nvidia's competitive offerings at the time of announcement, like the H200, which has 141 gigabytes of HBM3E, the difference is clear.
And having more memory lets you run bigger models on fewer chips.
Which saves money and simplifies deployment for the customer. It's a huge selling point.
Okay, we've talked performance, we've talked memory, but now we have to discuss the efficiency vector. We are moving into a world where sheer power consumption and thermal limits are becoming the true, inescapable bottlenecks in the data center.
This is the critical and I think often overlooked pivot point in the AI race. The industry is rapidly hitting an energy wall.
An energy wall.
Data center power consumption and cooling costs are just astronomical. Our sources highlight that in the U.S., grid interconnection requests are, quote, through the roof.
Meaning the existing electrical grids are already severely strained.
They're maxed out. And building new generation and transmission capacity to power these massive AI factories is becoming more and more expensive. Power itself is becoming the premium resource.
So chasing raw performance at any cost is no longer a sustainable business model for the hyperscaler.
It's not. The sources argue that chasing these incremental gains in model accuracy and speed is becoming marginally and massively expensive from an energy perspective.
So performance can't be measured purely by FLOPS anymore.
It has to be measured by efficiency per total capital expenditure, which includes the cost of power infrastructure and cooling. The prediction is that token MW, the number of tokens processed per megawatt of power consumed, is rapidly going to become the critical metric.
And this is where AMD sees a strategic advantage.
It's a key advantage. Their products, which are generally designed for lower power consumption through their integrated architectural approach, are very well positioned. The MI325X, for example, operates at a maximum power of 1,000 watts, which competes very favorably in this new efficiency race.
Okay, so on hardware architecture, on packaging, on memory density, and even on efficiency, AMD seems to have closed the gap significantly, but now we have to talk about it. The great unifier, the great differentiator, the elephant in the room, the software chasm.
This is where Nvidia's decade-plus lead is felt most acutely. The software ecosystem, primarily the CUDA platform, remains Nvidia's insurmountable moat. It is the undisputed industry standard, the benchmark for GPU compute.
So what is AMD's official alternative?
It is the ROCm open software platform. This includes drivers, development tools, and APIs like HIP, MIOpen, and ROCbls.
And Lisa Su has been very clear about this.
Unequivocal. She consistently reaffirms AMD's commitment to improving ROCm support, and she's gone so far as to call it the company's #1 priority.
But the reputation of ROCm is, historically, let's say, challenging, especially for developers and researchers who are used to SIA.
It has a truly painful reputation. I mean, users have joked for years that you need 17,000 PhDs just to configure it and run it effectively.
That's not a good sign.
No, it suffers from spotty Windows support, which is a huge hurdle for smaller developers, startups, university research labs, the very places where new ideas proliferate.
But the most critical issue, for enterprise adoption anyway, is its lack of reliable forward compatibility.
Yes. Let's elaborate on that because that is the definition of a software mode.
Right.
Think about it like this. If you write a sophisticated piece of code using CA today, you have a very high degree of confidence that in 5 or 10 years, when NVIDIA releases a new generation of hardware and new drivers, your old code will still run.
And it might even run faster with no changes.
Exactly. With minimal or no modifications. That reliability is key for these massive multi-year infrastructure investments.
And ROCm historically does not offer that.
It doesn't. It often produces what are called device-specific binaries. The code is optimized only for one particular chip generation and one particular driver release.
So when AMD releases new hardware or updates the software,
Enterprises have often had to rebuild and re-optimize their entire software stack. That constant retooling requirement is a massive deterrent to adopting AMD's hardware, no matter how cheap or how fast it is.
so what concrete actions are they taking to fix this other than just saying it's a priority? Are the customers forcing the change?
They are. The market adoption is forcing rapid progress. And crucially, the hyperscalers are actively working to diversify their software stack, which shows tangible belief in AMD's hardware roadmap.
That's a huge signal.
It is. The sources indicate that Microsoft, a critical partner, is actively developing toolkits specifically designed to convert existing CUDA models to AMD's ROCm for efficient operation on the MI300X.
So the big buyers are investing their own time and money to make this work.
Exactly. This external commitment, driven by the massive buyers who desperately want a choice beyond Nvidia, is the single biggest sign that the ROCm platform might finally be turning the corner from a historical liability to a viable alternative.
That structural shift is what's necessary to break the hegemony. Okay, let's transition. Let's look at the differences in leadership style, because Lisa Su operates in a fundamentally different way than her cousin and most of her industry peers.
We can characterize her entire philosophy as under-promise, over-deliver. She's consistently described as being modest, introverted, highly disciplined, and pragmatic.
She has this reputation for providing conservative financial guidance. She refuses to engage in that sort of aspirational, overly optimistic forecasting that is so common in Silicon Valley.
Right. She only speaks about deals and financial expectations that are locked down and confirmed. No hype.
And this stands in such stark contrast to that highly publicized, visionary, sometimes bombastic style we see in the tech bro category of leadership.
Which certainly includes leaders like Elon Musk and, you could argue, her cousin Jensen Huang.
So what happens when a cautious, disciplined leader meets a market that is addicted to constant hype and visionary promises?
It creates unnecessary volatility. There is a palpable sentiment among analysts that AMD's earning reports are vastly misunderstood by the investors.
How so?
The price action in the market, particularly right after an earnings call, is often driven by automated trading bots. And these bots are programmed to react violently to any statement that isn't a blunt, optimistic declaration of market dominance.
Well, the market actually wants her to be a hype-driven leader, even if it leads to disappointment later.
That's what some analysts suggest. They say investors want to hear explicit, confident statements, like confirming they'll achieve double-digit market share by the MI400 launch in 2026.
But because Sue is so prudent, she prefers to talk in terms of confirmed tens of billions in future revenue rather than aspirational hundreds of billions.
The market often reacts negatively or hesitantly at first. It leads to these automated sell-offs and volatility.
Her supporters, though, would view that as strategic prudence and honesty.
Exactly. This style allows AMD to sustain the heavy R&D investment arcs required for these generational shifts without constantly battling investor disappointment from missed targets. It buys her the stability she needs for a long-term fight.
And this prudence was really visible when she was discussing geopolitics, which is so linked to market reaction, specifically regarding China revenue.
Yeah, the U.S.-China tech war, with all its evolving tariffs and export controls, is just an unavoidable reality for these companies. And Sue's pragmatic view acknowledges that these policy decisions are a fact of life.
So when reporting recent earnings, AMD, quote, did the prudent thing and did not forecast China revenue because the necessary export licenses were still pending government approval.
Correct.
And what was the immediate market reaction to that prudence?
Well, the missing China sales led to immediate investor disappointment. It contributed to that post-earnings volatility we were just talking about.
But the underlying implication was actually very positive for AMD.
Incredibly positive. The anticipated sales, the ones they had to hold back, were a key driver. And the subtext was clear. It definitively proved that the massive Chinese market would buy non-Nvidia chips if they could get them. It provided crucial long-term market validation that AMD can and will succeed in selling its AI hardware globally once they get regulatory clarity.
This brings us to the ultimate question of this deep dive. Economic rivals, first cousins. Is this rivalry a competitive stunt, or is it absolutely genuine?
You always have to start by recalling the amazing personal dynamic. Jensen Huang, the hyper-aggressive CEO of Nvidia, and Lisa Su, the methodical leader of AMD, first cousins. Their mothers share a grandfather, It's one of those unbelievable coincidences that places family members at the absolute pinnacle of an industry that dictates global technological power.
Yet the public narrative is framed by this sensationalism, with headlines suggesting maximum intensity, out for Nvidia's blood.
But when you move beyond those headlines and you look at the actual corporate commitment, the argument against this being some kind of manufactured stunt is overwhelming.
It's just too big of a bet.
The competition is simply too immense, too expensive, and too strategic to be a temporary drama. AMD's entire turnaround, their current strategy, it's all predicated on these multi-year, multi-billion-dollar R&D arcs. They built Zen, they built EPYC, and now they are completely locked into the Instinct roadmaps, with the MI400 and MI450 already anticipated years in advance.
You don't make a nearly $50 billion acquisition of a company like Xilinx just to stage a temporary competitive narrative. That is an irreversible high-stakes commitment.
Precisely. This is a genuine, high-stakes, existential economic battle for the future of the trillion-dollar compute market. And crucially, this immense pressure and rivalry between two world-class competitors, that's what drives innovation across the entire sector.
It's good for everyone.
It forces both companies to constantly produce more powerful, more efficient, and more cost-effective solutions for the global market. It benefits every cloud provider and every AI lab worldwide.
Let's tie this back to Lisa Su's personal focus, which seems to really reinforce her long-term, disciplined approach to strategy.
Her personal demeanor is highly measured. She consciously avoids weighing in on general social or political issues. She believes her primary value add lies specifically in technology, engineering, and the company's execution.
She maintains this relentless focus on the trajectory of the chips and the engineering goals. She avoids distraction.
She does, and there's that great anecdote about her personal discipline, which I think provides a great physical analogy for her business strategy.
The boxing.
Yes. She took up boxing with a trainer shortly after becoming CEO and has maintained a rigorous routine for nearly a decade. She sees it as necessary exercise and a form of discipline.
And it's a fantastic example of her leadership style. While her public demeanor is prudent and measured, she harbors this incredibly strong internal will to win.
And she channels it into disciplined, methodical execution, just like her strategic business planning. It suggests she is constantly competing against herself and her own standards, which is maybe a more dangerous form of competition than just trying to out-hype a rival.
So if we look at the whole picture, the turnaround, the billion-dollar bets, the long-term hardware roadmap, the methodical leadership style, what's the final assessment of this family rivalry?
It is definitively a genuine, high-stakes economic battle for the future of AI computing, driven by two highly ambitious, incredibly capable leaders who just happen to be family.
The intensity is real, but the methodology is different.
Exactly. Huang relies on that visionary hype that dramatically moves markets in the short term, which helps secure capital. Su relies on methodical execution and prudence, which often gets undervalued in the short term, but provides the necessary stability and financial foundation for a long-term, multi-generational technological war.
This has been a truly comprehensive look into a rivalry that is just foundational to the modern global economy. Let's recap the key takeaways from this deep dive into AMD and Lisa Su's strategic challenge to Nvidia.
First, you have to remember the transformation. Su rescued AMD from an existential crisis. Shares at $3, market cap of $3 billion. She transformed it into a $200 billion powerhouse through that Phoenix strategy and the absolutely critical acquisition of Xilinx.
That Xilinx deal gave them the IP they needed for advanced heterogeneous integration and the whole chiplet design philosophy.
Second, the technical strategy is brilliant, and it's based on a structural advantage. AMD is challenging the old monolithic design with a chiplet approach and deep architectural coherence.
They're leveraging their unique position of designing both the CPU and the GPU, which culminates in products like the MI300 APU with its unified shared memory that drastically improves data throughput.
Third, they are winning the memory and efficiency battle right now. Products like the MI325X offer superior memory density, 256 gigabytes of HBM3E, and they're positioning themselves strongly for a future where power efficiency, or token MW, becomes the single most critical metric.
Which is going to happen because of soaring data center energy and cooling costs.
Right.
But the central challenge remains that software mode. The hardware war is absolutely winnable. The MI300 series proves AMD can build competitive silicon. But the software ecosystem, ROCm, remains the critical bottleneck against Nvidia's decade-long CUDA dominance.
But progress is being made. And it's largely driven by the massive hyperscalers like Microsoft, who are actively seeking diversification and putting their own resources into making it work.
It's a long, sustained game played by a very patient, determined, and highly disciplined leader.
Absolutely.
And that profound patience, that long-term view, leads us to our final thought for you. Lisa Su isn't just focused on quarterly earnings or even the next generation of chips. She operates with a deep, long-term perspective that goes far beyond semiconductor sales.
She recently noted that when her time at AMD is done, she hopes to use her expertise in AI and complex system integration to address what she calls the travesty that is modern healthcare.
She believes her experience in taking incredibly complex, disparate systems like semiconductor manufacturing and making them work cohesively is a perfect fit for stitching together the fragmented elements of drug discovery, data management, and patient care.
She views technology through a definitive 5-year trajectory lens. She's already planning for these massive societal impact solutions that extend far beyond simply beating her cousin in the chip market.
So this is the question we'll leave you with. Given that Lisa Su has such a long-term, methodical focus on massive, complex societal problems, rather than just chasing the next quarter's revenue beat, does her ambition and her patience ultimately make her a more formidable and a more enduring competitor against Jensen Huang than the short-term market volatility currently realizes? What massive, hard problem will you take on next, and what 5-year trajectory are you planning for your own ambitions?